I'm going to talk to you about the Good Governance Handbook, so this handbook, and more particularly the new feature of the version 1.2. So because we hit 1.2 milestone recently, and so I will give you more detail, just a few words about me before. So Florent Zara, I'm working at the Eclipse Foundation. I'm the open source services team lead over there. So provides services to our members who want to do more with open source. So that's I'm building this service offering, building and running this service offering for our members. And for that, we've put some of our knowledge, most of our knowledge, into the OSPO Alliance. I will talk a little bit later. So I'm a maintainer of the OSPO Alliance also, and I'm a Good Governance Handbook contributor of this handbook and translator for the French version. And I'm also dealing with the on-ramp session of the on-ramp. We have on-ramp webinar, so I'm kind of the master of ceremony for the on-ramp sessions, and I'm part of the communication task force of the OSPO Alliance. And on a side note, for the French people on the room, I know there is at least one, I'm a board member of the LinuxFR, linuxfr.org website, which is a French website about community-driven French website. So, I assume everyone knows what an OSPO is in the room. So a few words maybe before about the OSPO Alliance. So the OSPO Alliance has been launched in 2021 by 4 European non-profit organizations, namely so the Eclipse Foundation, OW2, Foundation for Public Code, and Open Forum Europe. So it has been done to promote best practices and excellence in open source software management. And we are governed by open source principles like openness, transparency, collaboration, and meritocracy. So we hold regular meetings, some weekly, sometimes more meetings, but depends on how you want to be involved inside the community. And we are using an open GitLab repo and other paths to collaborate remotely. So everybody is welcome. We are inclusive, and we are not EU-centric, even if we were created in Europe. So we have many initiatives to achieve our goals, but we provide three main initiatives. From right to left, we've got the OSPO Alliance website, to showcase our work. We also have a forum. We have a community mailing list. We participate in events like this one. We sell copies of the handbook. I have 2 handbooks if you want to grab yours at the end of the session. But you can buy yours online. We have also, you can go on Amazon, Lulu, stuff like that. We have monthly webinars. That's online webinars. We call on-ramp session. Everyone is welcome on this. So this is usually experienced people coming to talk, to give feedback about how they run their OSPO. So you can just join this monthly meeting every third Friday every third Friday of the month. And finally, what we're here today, that's the Good Governance Handbook. This is kind of a proven, actionable framework and a set of guidelines, best practices for building your OSPO. So, as I said, this is a framework to create an OSPO. Let's deep dive a bit. So, kind of a blueprint. So it has been developed by a European open source organization mainly, but we welcome everyone. We also have IBM and Red Hat helping us. So to implement corporate-wide open source policies and set up OSPO. Like Brian said 2 talks before, he talked about the stuff you need to implement inside your company to build your OSPO. So this is some kind of guidance to help you do it. So concretely, we propose with this book a journey to a successful OSPO with a proven method and practical guidance. It has been implemented sometimes, so there is 25 activities from software composition analysis, development best practices, training, HR, executive education. So I will deep dive this in a minute. And all those 25 activities, they are organized into 5 goals. That goes from discovery of what you are doing in open source. Sometimes the organization do not know what they are doing in open source. They need to know. Everyone is doing open source without even knowing it. To engagement at a strategical level. So we've got 5, so here is the comprehensive list of the activities. They are grouped so by goals. You've got the 5 goals, usage, trust, culture goal, engagement, and strategy goal. And 5 activities per goal. I like it when things are perfectly in order, 5 by 5. And so you see that's the first one. The usage goal is kind of, you can do an inventory of open source skills and resources, just what you have internally, what you do. Do you use open source, community open source? Do you have do you use open source enterprise software? Like, you have a contract with a single vendor doing open source software, for example. And also on the HR part, HR section, which are your assets, your talents in open source inside your company. So kind of a mapping, what you are doing internally, how you use it, and maybe set up some basic rules on how to use open source. Then the trust goal. This is where we get more serious about open source. We want to use open source, we need to do open source, but we need to trust open source and to define some basic rules, like to manage the legal compliance, or to deal with vulnerabilities, the dependencies, to implement some indicators, to do some code reviews. And then, when you have all this, you need maybe to implement, to diffuse some kind of a culture goal. Culture. You need to infuse a culture of your open source culture inside your company, to promote open source development best practices, to incentive people to participate in open source projects, to contribute upstream, to put some incentive, even in the HR part must be involved, the human resources, to have some in the contracts to make sure people are secure, they can contribute to open source safely, and they won't fear any problem with copyright issue, what's come from the company, what is mine, what is the project I do on my personal side, what is the project that belongs to my company when I contribute to an open source project. So whose copyright is it? Mine, the company, another one. And yes, feel part, maybe feel part of an open source community. Then you can go further and have a real engagement with this open source community, to engage clearly with open source project, to support open source community by maybe giving money or contributing, giving people some time to contribute to open source projects directly, to fix bugs, and to sometimes engage with open source vendor, to support them, to have some support contract from them, to buy services from people selling open source software. And to also maybe going further and define a procurement policy regarding open source, because sometimes the procurement policies for closed software, proprietary software, is not made for open source. It's more complicated. And you can just, as many companies are doing today, have a manifesto on open source or a web page called opensource.mycompany.com, saying that yes, I use open source, I do open source, I use open source, I contribute to open source. Here is how I do it. You can also have some kind of a strategy goal, then after embrace open source at a strategical level, at executive level. So this is in the, let's say, in the direction the company wants to go, and want to embrace open source, to be a real champion of open source and to benefit from it at all levels. So this is 25 activities. What's the structures of these activities? You've got the first description of the activity. What is it exactly? How to assess it? How to report your progress? Some recommendation to help you implement this activity, some tools and resources to help you also to go further, or to help you implementing this activity. And then the next step recommendation, because the beginning, that's new in this version. Usually we were just giving you 25 activities and just draw, set up your journey as you want. So this is now we are giving somehow a path, suggested path that you can go from, just the usage, so how you start your OSPO, and then what would be a typical implementation of an OSPO inside a typical company. Then you need to adapt to your needs. Activities are meant to be templates, and they need to be translated to your local context. And for that, we provide scorecards. So you have the description of an activity, but then after, you have scorecards like this one. So this is the PDF version, but we have another one I will show you in a second. They are used to adapt the generic activity to your context, to your local team, to your experts, to the competencies you already have in-house, to your internal processes, to the tools you have already. And if there is some specific task, specific people, specific committees, you need to convince, you need to show your work, you need to convince. So that's why you need to really adapt the activity to your needs. They are available in two flavors. So there is a plain old paper one version, like this PDF, you see, you can print and fill in. Or we provide a GitLab issue description, With GitLab, you can use a GitLab issue that currently we are using GitLab. That can be integrated into the workflow, your workflow and your website. We'll see that just right now. So we call that the My GGI board. This is a deployable instance of the GGI handbook, for your implementation, for implementation of the method. So you can start working on your OSPO in less than 10 minutes. It works on any GitLab. That's GitLab, the free community version, the enterprise edition, the premium, the ultimate, you name it. Currently only GitLab, not GitHub, but we are working on it. And that's a quick and easy way to deploy and implement the GGI method. You just, right away, you will have 25 issues created. The activity will be created as issue, 25. And you will be able to visualize them in a board, in a project board. And you can start working on the activities, write your scorecards, personalize your activity to your context. And then also, it will generate also a web page to communicate and report about your progress. So you can track everything he's doing. If you are the only one, that's useful to organize your work. And if you are multiple people, in multiple entities with, like we said before, federated, in the previous talk, there was federated OSPOs sometimes, with sub-OSPO. When you are a large entity, you can use that to communicate and to know who's working on what, where. So everything can be put in place from the GitLab web interface. On your interface, you just fork this repository on your GitLab instance. So you create an access token, you configure a new CI/CD variable in GitLab, and then there is a pre-configured pipeline. And each night, you will have your website generated showing your report. And so, a static dashboard, so I've said everything on that. So what are we? So what have we done in 2023, and where are we going in 2024 in the OSPO Alliance? So we became more mature. We formalized, we worked on internal governance models. So because at the beginning it was done, everyone was participating a bit as they wanted and how they wanted. So now we've got a more formalized governance model inside the OSPO Alliance organization. We created various task forces to work on specific topics. So we wanted to optimize the time spent by the volunteers and the contributors. They can now choose to participate in everything if they want, or in a specific topic, and not everything. And we also describe our processes, how we work. So if you want to join us, everything is written on the website, the daily operations, the working mode, etc. We also created a partner hub to help organizations find reliable and paid support via consultancy and trainings. We make sure that those entities that are listed on the website, on the partner hub of the website, they are more than familiar with the Good Governance initiative, and they know how to implement it, and they know what's inside. There is a Dutch organization which is the first, Sailboard, and little spoiler, Eclipse, I hope Eclipse will follow soon, because I'm building a service offer, really targeted for people who wanted to implement the open source Good Governance initiative. And we also improve our tools. We've got a deployment feature with more metrics, have you seen? We have a new independent EU-based infrastructure that follows the RGPD rules. And we also updated, of course, the Good Governance Handbook, the version 1.2, which is here, with a new chapter about inner source. I don't know if you know inner source, because we are not too many, so maybe we can, everyone know what inner source is? Okay, so fine. So we added a chapter for inner source specifically. We've got a new section about the recommended next activities, what I was talking about. So you are done with an activity, you started implementing it, you want to do what's next. So we've got some suggestions for you. And we've got also new translations coming from the crowd because, and I will get to that in a moment about the translations. So the roadmap. So the feedback, we've got great feedback. We've learned that the GGI handbook is useful and helping a lot of people and organizations. It has already been deployed at various organizations, private and public sector. And the roadmap for 2024 is quite ambitious. We hope we will be able to achieve it. And we want to nurture and develop the community and grow our ecosystem, and that takes time, you know, being part of the communication task force, can tell you. We want to consolidate our infrastructure for collaboration, so to improve it. We've got a brand new forum based on discourse. We've got also Matomo, that's forum.ospo-alliance.org. We've got a Matomo running to get more metrics to better know our community, but still RGPD compliant, and a metric server to work on it. We will be improving and enriching the handbook, so more metrics also to be able to better follow, better understand where you are deploying your OSPO and showing your progress to your management, to your executives, so to justify that you need an OSPO, and to come up with more variants. So we started with inner source. We want to improve the inner source part of the variants, but we need more variants also with specificities, for example, from the public sector, for academics, because they are dealing with a specific issue, like, for example, with academics, with open science. This is something you see less in the private sector. The public sector, sometimes they have open data issues, or open data will strong focus on open data because they need to release some of their data in an open data format. And also improve the deployment, you know, make it available to multiple platforms. We currently support GitLab, maybe GitHub, maybe Gitee or 4.0 in the coming future, but we welcome people knowing. We know a lot about GitLab, we know less in the community about GitHub, so if you want to join us and to help us on that, you're more than welcome. Quick word about inner source. We currently have one chapter, I said, about inner source, but we are going to improve it. We started the review, you know, of the 25 activities to do some kind of mapping and identify those that are relevant for inner source. There is some activities that are not relevant for inner source, so we are kind of trying to track the ones that are really useful for inner source and maybe made some adaptation, specific adaptation for inner source to make it, you know, more pertinent, more relevant in an inner source context. Okay, so then we will include public sector, academic world, as I said before. So we started the work of mapping. You can just, again, join us if you know about inner source. So that's it about the Open Source Governance Handbook and this initiative. Maybe a quick word on our two other initiatives. The first one is the on-ramp meeting. They are a low threshold offering for interested parties. You know, that's no membership, no registration. This is open to everyone. You can talk in a protected environment. This is really for open exchange and discussion under the Chatham House rule. And we want to generate useful content for OSPOs and for you to get inspiration, to get ideas from what others are doing. We record some part of the meetings, so you can see the replay. You can watch the replays on our website. This is a regular meeting we have every month, every third Friday of the month. So in the morning, in the morning in the European time. And I said we also want to extend the reach of our initiative. One of the things we are, sorry, it's kind of an old version, but sorry for that. For the slide, I will put you the last one. There is a to-do reaching. So we have the translation, we have the mailing list, forum, discourse, social networks. We currently have Mastodon, LinkedIn, and Twitter. And we are currently having OSPO stories. That's feedback. So we have recorded feedback, video feedback. We want also to have written feedback from people saying why they choose to have an OSPO, how they implemented it using the Good Governance Handbook or not, and how they did it so they can inspire others. And we also participate in events like this one. As I said, we've got the partner herbs and the translations. You know, we've got so now 5 translations of the handbook with the English. That's 6 languages. So a potential of thousands of readers. I think that's nearly 1 billion millions of persons with, if we only count the native speakers of those 6 languages, you know. So we've got German, French, Portuguese, Dutch, Italian, and Spanish. And in that I count, you know, in Portuguese I count the Brazilian, because they also speak a variant of Portuguese. So everything is available on ospo-alliance.org/GGI, and we are using Weblate for the translation. So if you know another language, if you just welcome to help us. You know, we've got a one-liner there to start. You just open this URL in the web browser, and then you just create an account if needed, and you choose your language, and then you're nearly good to go. So you can start translating without asking the permission again, and but we would love to hear from you. So again, just 2 last slides. One to show that the OSPO Alliance supporters. So this is the community currently, people committed to support us, to help us. So remember, this is funded by 4 European foundations. This is not an established legal entity. This is an informal entity, informal gathering of people. There is no membership, no fee, just a statement of support, half a PDF page you need to sign and send us back, and we will put your logo on the web page. And this is on a best effort basis. So I'd just like to conclude with some of the words of wisdom brought to my attention by Cláudia Maria Medeiros, who is a professor of computer science in the University of Campinas in Brazil. So this is a poem. You can see, I will just put the translation in English. This is the verses by Paul Valéry, a famous French poet from the beginning of the 20th century. They are displayed on the wall of the Palais de Chaillot in Paris. For those who have been to Paris before, that's, you know, really close to the Eiffel Tower. So they expresses the idea that the meaning and the value of the work of art, and sometimes the open source and the coding, the software can be seen as a work of art, sometimes when you code, somehow. And so they depend on the viewer's gaze and desire. So what you do with your open source, what you have internally, what you do with open source only depends on you, you know. And the GGI from the OSPO Alliance can be seen as a living user guide and a community to help it flourish and thrive. So, I don't know, so it depends on him who passes by, whether I am a tomb or a treasure, whether I speak or remain silent. This is entirely up to you. Friend does not enter without desire. So please have a desire for your open source, and if you don't know how to start, this is the first step, the good governance. So thank you, and if you have some questions, maybe I have a couple of minutes for questions.